Oh, turning on? It's on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Here we are again. Before we start, I want to show you the room, the space that we're in. We're in the Garchen Institute Temple. And some of you have been here, and some of you have seen the temple on Zoom sessions with Rinpoche and others, Khenpo perhaps, but probably many of you have never been here. And so I want to introduce you to our beautiful temple. First, we'll show Rinpoche's seat, Garchen Rinpoche's seat here. And then Billy, our wonderful technician, will pan around the temple to show all the deities who are convening here with us. When this institute was first established, this was a big bare room. And gradually the deities arrived, sometimes in groups, sometimes one by one. But here they are with us now. And it's a gray day here today. We're in the middle of monsoon season in Arizona, which means some years when we're very fortunate, we get a lot of rain. And the drought is somewhat eased for a bit. We're in a 20-year drought at the moment and counting. Very dry, with lots of wildfires, as I'm sure that you're aware. And now we actually have moisture in the air, which is very unusual. Over an extended period of time. It's quite wonderful, a blessing for all the animals, including us. And right now, I think you're looking at His Holiness Drikung Kyabgun's seat, His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche, who is the head of this lineage, the Drikung Kagyu lineage. And when he comes, this is where he sits, and the rest of the time, his mind is sitting here with us. He never abandons us. He is like the sun shining in the sky. So this is our retreat chamber. This is where we're doing our retreat this weekend, all day today and tonight, and all day tomorrow until late afternoon. And in the sessions where we're having just a meditation practice this evening and also tomorrow morning early, I'll be here in the temple with you, just mind to mind. You won't be at your Zoom or YouTube station. We won't be recording. There will be no camera, but there'll just be all of us sitting together. And now you see the space in which I'll be at that time holding our attention together as we love to do. We know that we can do this because we've done it now quite a few times. It's marvelous, actually, to be able to gather like this without our physical bodies needing to be in the same room together. I was thinking about it after the last retreat at the end of April. I had very interesting feedback or comments from many people who were able to attend that retreat, who remarked upon the directness and immediacy of the connection through the camera. And it reminded me to remind us all of something that we may know theoretically or intellectually, or maybe we know it experientially also. The very fact that we have this extraordinary connection through a camera without being present physically in the same room or even on the same continent. We are on the same planet, at least those who are seeing this on YouTube or in the session. Maybe there are people from other planets also tuning in. I don't know about that. But it reminds us that even after death, we do not need to consider that communication ends. There is no need to make that assumption. The great teachers of the past are still teaching. We know that because we're still receiving their teachings in the direct lineages, right down the line from when they first gave those teachings. But also we have experiences sometimes of direct insight or direct, a sense of direct knowing that we are available to the Dharma because the Dharma is not restricted to time or person or place. And so it's our availability that determines whether we're receiving or not. The blessings are always flowing down to us and surrounding us. And the old people from indigenous traditions have spoken about how the blessings also come up through the soles of our feet because they're also in the earth. And that I thought was simply a very powerful piece of information. When I first received it many years ago from the Native American teacher that I was with at that time. And then when I came to the Dharma and started receiving teachings in the Nyingma tradition, I began to hear wonderful stories about discovery of teachings that have been hidden in the earth by Guru Rinpoche, Guru Pema, and with the assistance of the great yogini Yeshe Tsogyal. And so if teachings are placed in the earth, they are certainly permeating the earth. And if we're walking on the earth, there's no reason to think that that's not also a route of access for blessings. So we're suspended here between earth and sky as we stand on the earth, and the blessings, the goodness of the Holy Dharma comes to us in every way, from every direction. And also through traditions that are not named Buddha Dharma, the blessings of truth and love, the lineages of truth and love reach us without limit, never stopping the flow, the ceaseless flow of truth and love, because these are the essence of the absolute or the ultimate wisdom. We call it wisdom, we could call it truth. It's inseparable from love. I know I'm speaking immediately of those things we've been speaking of together for years, but just today it seemed almost as if we were going to be sitting together in our living room. This is our living room. So I wanted to show you the temple where we'll be together. So now we'll move to a more formal opening. I'm greeting you with all my love and great gratitude and just abundant joy that we're together again. For some of you, perhaps it's the first time sitting together in this format or in this place or with me, and I'm very happy for new friends and old who gathered for this weekend. For some of you, it's a revisiting of teachings that we've been working with for many years, some members of Sangha that have been together for a long time. And for others, it's perhaps just during this pandemic, when so many have been locked down, so to speak, that we have also been able to open up as Dharma has been flowing throughout the planet, throughout the world, 24/7, in every time zone. So welcome. Let's do our opening prayers in the yellow prayer book, for those of you who have it. This is the opening of our two-day retreat, so I'll be doing more extensive opening prayers. Refuge and generation of bodhicitta is where we always start. Dat lang
dang dang je pedra nu par je pegeng tarpa dang tam che kien pe bar du chu par je pa tam che kit so je pe manam ga dang nyam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den du nal dang dral yo du la na me pa yang dang par zo pe Jang chu rinpoche to paraja. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Manam kadang nyampe sem chen tam che de wadang de we judang den parjur ching duk nal ji judang rao jur ching duk nal me pe de wadang min rao jur ching yering chak dang ni dang rao we tang nyom la ne parjur. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms, if I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine, by offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial, the supreme mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratitsa Soha. Namo. To the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence, I offer all appearance and existence, arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you, may the 3 realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord with 5 omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words or thought, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind primordially pure and unborn as the unfathomable Dharmakaya. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. And during this pandemic, it's been given us to recite 4 lines from Shantideva's Bodhisattva treatise that permeates the centuries. So for those of you who have it, we call it Shantideva's 4 lines. And I'll recite it 3 times. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. I'm going to invite you now, we'll recite it one more time, and please bring to mind in this last recitation everyone you know for whom this prayer would have immediate import, significance, and blessing power. People who are ill, people who are dying, people who are in families where there is illness, people who live in communities where illness is. And in terms of the pandemic, we need to be thinking globally of each and every individual who has or is presently or will in the times to come, the moments to come and months to come, be exposed to the pandemic in a way that causes suffering for them. And may the power of this suffering that we're all sharing, there's no one immune here in any way to the suffering, although we may some find ourselves immune to the virus, the coronavirus. The suffering permeates the mind because there is only one mind. And if a sentient being anywhere is suffering, I am experiencing some element of that and some aspect of that, as are you. And so it's been a heavy time. It continues unexpectedly. It's increasing now. Please carry in your mind right now, draw into your awareness every single human being on the globe who is affected by the coronavirus. This is also true for some animals who are affected by the coronavirus, and the huge purification that this worldwide suffering occasions. Let us accept that suffering. It's not that other people's suffering is something we take on in a physical way. Some great masters may be able to do that. That's a very profound form of tone lens, very rare, I think. But we all are here together. You know that wonderful expression in American English, we're all in this together. It's certainly true. So bring everyone together for this last recitation of Shantideva's 4 lines. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. Now, for those of you who have the 37 Bodhisattva practices, please recite with me. We're going to recite rather quickly. Let the meaning, if it's new to you, as you hear this recitation, if it's new to you, please, is that contained in the blue book somewhere, the 37? It's not, okay. So, but many of you have this yellow book, the wee yellow book. Some of you have
my commentary on it called Brave, Generous, and Undefended, and it's at the beginning. It's early on. I can't tell you right away what page, but here it is. Starts on page 10 in this book. So whatever you have, and if all you have is being able to hear the voice of this one who's reciting, please join your mind with mine. This is the entire Buddha Dharma as given by Gyaltse Tokme from the 14th century and by His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche from the 21st century. Nama Lokeshvaraya. While seeing that all phenomena neither come nor go, you strive solely for the sake of all beings. Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig, at all times I respectfully pay homage to you with my body, speech, and mind. The perfect Buddhas, source of all well-being and ultimate peace, arise from having accomplished the true Dharma, and since that depends on knowing the practices, I shall explain the way of the Bodhisattvas. Having now gained this great ship of freedom and fortune so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of cyclic existence, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night without distraction. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Attachment to loved ones churns like water. Hatred for enemies rages like fire. In the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to avoid. Abandon your homeland. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When negative places are abandoned, disturbing emotions will gradually decline. Without distractions, attention to virtue naturally grows. When the mind becomes clear, certainty in the Dharma arises. Live alone in seclusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Family and longtime companions will part from each other. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness, a guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of all worldly concerns. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When one follows a true spiritual friend, faults will dissolve and good qualities will grow like a waxing moon. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Who can worldly gods, themselves imprisoned in samsara, protect? Therefore seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The Buddha taught that all the unbearable suffering of the lower realms is caused by wrongdoing. Therefore never do wrong, even at the cost of your life. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, the happiness of the three worlds vanishes in but an instant. Strive for the supreme state of never-changing liberation. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When mothers who have loved you since beginningless time are suffering, what good is your own happiness? Therefore give rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate infinite sentient beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering, without exception, comes from seeking your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the altruistic mind. Therefore, truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtue of the three times. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all their negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout a billion worlds, in return speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone you've cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status, driven by pride, treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished, always disparaged, gripped by disease, and tormented by spirits, never lose courage, but take on the pain and misdeeds of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and admired by many who bow to you, and as rich as the wealth god himself, Having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore, subdue your own mind with the army of love and compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that bring forth clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope of reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose. So wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by insight, but grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the four formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other five perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the three spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about another bodhisattva's faults, it's actually to your own detriment. So don't mention the faults of those who've entered the great vehicle. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Concern for gain and respect causes conflict and a decline in the activities of learning and reflecting and meditating. So abandon attachment to your circle of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb others' minds and thus diminish the practice of a bodhisattva. Therefore, abandon harsh speech, which is unpleasant to others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When disturbing emotions become habitual, it is difficult to reverse them with antidotes. Thus, the soldier of mindfulness wields antidotes as weapons and destroys disturbing emotions such as attachment the moment they start to arise. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, always examine the state of your mind. Act to accomplish the purpose of others through constant mindfulness and awareness. This is the way of a bodhisattva. With the wisdom of threefold purity, dedicate all the virtue gained from having made such effort toward enlightenment. Dedicate it to clear away the suffering of infinite beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. We will be working with the Prayer of Kuntuzongpo throughout this retreat. On the schedule that I posted for you, it says that we'll start that on Sunday, but actually we're going to treat it as all-pervading, which it is. I'm going to quickly recite it now because I'm going to make reference to it shortly as I speak to you for the first time about our work this weekend and some of the things that we will be focusing on. So some of you have this prayer. It's on page 40 in the blue prayer book, and others of you may have it with this in this format. It's exactly the same text. If there's a word or two different, just don't be thrown off. Just go ahead and keep reciting. Keep on going. That's an extraordinarily important Dharma teaching. Just keep on going. Applying to acts of virtue. Applied to acts of non-virtue, it's recognize the non-virtue, stop it, and keep on going with your practice. Just clear up any misconception there. Okay. The Prayer of Kuntuzongpo, the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra. Ho! Everything, appearance and existence, samsara and nirvana, has a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions, and magically displays as awareness or unawareness. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may all beings become Buddhas, completely perfected in the abode of the Dharma Dhatu. The ground of all is uncompounded, and the self-arising great expanse beyond expression has neither the name samsara nor nirvana. Realizing just this, you are a Buddha. Not realizing this, you are a being wandering in samsara. I pray that all you beings of the three realms may realize the true meaning of the inexpressible ground. I, Kuntuzongpo, have realized the truth of this ground, free from cause and condition, which is just this self-arising awareness. It is unstained by outer expression and inner thought, affirmation or denial, and is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. Thus this self-manifesting display is free from defects. I, Kuntuzongpo, abide as intrinsic awareness. Even though the three realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the five desirable qualities of sense objects. In self-arising consciousness, free of thoughts, there is neither solid form nor the five poisons. In the unceasing clarity of awareness, singular in essence, there yet arises the display of the five wisdoms. From the ripening of these five wisdoms, the five original Buddha families emerge, and through the expanse of their wisdom, the 42 peaceful Buddhas appear. Through the arising power of the five wisdoms, the 60 wrathful herikas manifest. Thus the ground awareness is never mistaken nor wrong. I, Kuntuzongpo, am the original Buddha of all, and through this prayer of mine, may all you beings who wander in the three realms of samsara realize this self-arising awareness, and may your great wisdom spontaneously increase. My emanations will continuously manifest in billions of unimaginable ways, appearing in forms to help you beings who can be trained. Through my compassionate prayer, may all of you beings who wander in the three realms of samsara escape from the 6 life forms. From the beginning, you beings are deluded because you do not recognize the awareness of the ground. Being thus unmindful of what occurs is delusion, the very state of unawareness and the cause of going astray. From this delusive state comes a sudden fainting away and then a subtle consciousness of wavering fear. From that wavering there arises a separation of self and the perception of others as enemies. Gradually the tendency of separation strengthens, and from this the circle of samsara begins. Then the emotions of the 5 poisons develop, and the actions of these emotions are endless. You beings lack awareness because you are unmindful, and this is the basis of your going astray. Through my prayer, may all you beings recognize your intrinsic awareness. Innate unawareness means unmindfulness and distraction. Imputing unawareness means dualistic thoughts towards self and others. Both kinds of unawareness are the basis for the delusion of all beings. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may all you beings wandering in samsara clear away the dark fog of unmindfulness, clear away the clinging thoughts of duality. May you recognize your own intrinsic awareness. Dualistic thoughts create doubt. From subtle attachment to this dualistic turn of mind, dualistic tendencies become stronger and thicker. Food, wealth, clothes, home and friends, the 5 objects of the senses and your beloved family, all these things cause torment by creating longing and desire. These are all worldly delusions. The activities of grasping and clinging are endless. When the fruition of attachment ripens, you're born as a hungry ghost, tormented by coveting and desiring, miserable, starving, and thirsty. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may all you desirous and lustful beings who have attachments neither reject longing desires nor accept attachment to desires. Let your consciousness relax in its own natural state. Then your awareness will be able to hold its own. May you achieve the wisdom of perfect discernment. When external objects appear, the subtle consciousness of fear will arise. From this fear, the habit of anger becomes stronger and stronger. Finally, hostility comes, causing violence and murder. When the fruition of this anger ripens, you will suffer in hell by boiling and burning. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, you beings of the 6 realms, when strong anger arises for you, neither reject nor accept it. Instead, relax in the natural state and achieve the wisdom of clarity. When your mind becomes full of pride, there will arise thoughts of competition and humiliation. As this pride becomes stronger and stronger, you will experience the suffering of quarrels and abuse. When the fruition of this karma ripens, you will be born in the God realms and experience the suffering of change and falling to lower rebirths. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may you beings who develop pride let your consciousness relax in the natural state. Then your awareness will be able to hold its own. May you achieve the wisdom of equanimity. By increasing the habit of duality, by praising yourself and denigrating others, your competitive mind will lead you to jealousy and fighting, and you will be born in the jealous God realm where there is much killing and injury. From the result of that killing, you will fall into the hell realm. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, when jealousy and competitive thoughts arise, do not grasp them as enemies. Just relax in ease, then consciousness can hold its own natural state. May you achieve the wisdom of unobstructed action. By being distracted, careless, and unmindful, you beings will become dull, foggy, and forgetful. By being unconscious and lazy, you will increase your ignorance, and the fruition of this ignorance will be to wander helplessly in the animal realm. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may you beings who have fallen into the dark pit of ignorance shine the light of mindfulness and thereby achieve wisdom free from thought. All you beings of the 3 realms are actually identical to Buddha, the ground of all, but your misunderstanding of the ground causes you to go astray, so you act without aim. The 6 karmic actions are a delusion like a dream. I am the primordial Buddha, here to train the 6 kinds of beings through all my manifestations. Through Kuntuzongpo's prayer, may all you beings without exception attain enlightenment in the state of Dharma Dhatu. Aho! Hereafter, whenever a very powerful yogin with his or her awareness, radiant and free from delusion, recites this very powerful prayer, then all who hear it will achieve enlightenment within 3 lifetimes. During a solar or lunar eclipse, during an earthquake or when the earth rumbles, at the solstices or the new year, you should visualize Kuntuzongpo, and if you pray loudly so all can hear, then beings of the 3 realms will be gradually liberated from suffering through the prayer of the yogin and will finally achieve enlightenment. That's the whole teaching. The 37 Bodhisattva practices and the prayer of Kuntuzongpo. The prayer is a life path. It's the how-to for how to awaken in the present human form, which actually in the wonderful Tibetan teachings of the 6 realms and the causes of them and the sufferings of them and the escape from them, the human realm is referred to as the perfect one to attain enlightenment, to attain liberation. We have just the right amount of suffering, not so much that we are completely overwhelmed and incapacitated by it, and just enough to catch our attention, to do something with the question, what is this? Why am I suffering? Why are all these beings suffering, these untold miseries, human and otherwise? I'm a human being. What can I do about this? How can I address this question, what is suffering and why is suffering? And what can I do about it to save from the great streams of suffering all beings, and all who have been our mothers in other lifetimes, our parents, those most dear to us, but especially those who have given birth to us, our mother and father in many lifetimes, and those who have cared for us, like mothers and fathers. allowing us to have a physical body, allowing us to remain in it for as long as possible, giving us what teachings they had available for how to live a good life as a human being, correcting us sternly or gently when required, more or less successfully, in my case not very successfully most of the time, and pointing the way as best they knew to how to be a good person, a good person. To some of us, this way or that way may look like a crazy way to think about being a good person. It may look like the result is really pathetic, or we may think our own result is pathetic. But you know, an early teaching that I received on the path, which actually I don't think I'd ever heard before I met the Buddha Dharma, is we're all doing the best we can. That speaks to the power of karma. We'll talk more about that during our retreat time together. Garchen Rinpoche speaks quite frequently when he's speaking of karma, when he's speaking of suffering, when he's speaking of liberation and enlightenment. In other words, when he's speaking of our experience as relative reality beings wandering in samsara, or our actual essence as Buddhas, not our individual personhood, that is not necessarily a Buddha, but what we come from, the ground of being, is indeed what we refer to as Buddhahood. It is perfect, pristine, unborn and undying, unchanging, has no cause nor condition. It is what Kuntuzongpo's prayer path refers to as the ground. And only our mistaken conceptions and the heavy weight of our karmic tendencies and predispositions, which express as the poisonous afflictions of mind and behavior that are outlined in the Kuntuzongpo prayer. Only this hides from us the primordial purity that Kuntuzongpo prayer refers to as the ground. That sometimes is referred to as enlightenment nature, sometimes as wisdom, or the absolute or ultimate wisdom accomplishment, wisdom mind. And in our retreat teachings and practice during this weekend, as in the last Clear Awareness retreat in April, and in many, many, many of the teachings that His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche has been giving in these last months over the time of the pandemic, when we've been able to tune in with him and feel as if we're sitting right at his knee, he's been speaking of clear awareness. And the first time I heard this term, clear awareness, although it's not different or other, and I may have heard it before, but the first time I heard it and sat up straight and said, this is what I'm needing, this teaching, was when I read the second volume of Susu's biography of His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. Susu's a longtime student for Rinpoche, and over a period of many years has been carrying his teachings and the communications she's had directly with him into printed form as an archive of his life and teachings, and with wonderful photographs. And it includes his childhood, and the second volume includes the period of his imprisonment for 20 years in a Chinese labor camp. And in that labor camp, and I know many of you are familiar with this story, and many of you have also seen Susu's book. If those who haven't, I highly recommend it. And maybe Billy can put up a reference for it on the screen at some point during our time together so that you know how to find it. It has been available in the past on Amazon, but in the book there's also an email address, and Billy, if you can put that up, then you can contact Susu directly and ask when the next volume will be available. But so that's a slight digression, but in favor of your having the book, because it is a jewel. It will ultimately be 3 volumes. Unless she lives to 150, which she might, and then it might be 4, who knows? But in the volume in which he's talking about his experience in the labor camp in the Chinese prison, he speaks of meeting there his root guru, Khenpo Munsel, a great Nyingma yogi and practitioner and teacher. And Rinpoche, in his time in the prison, had suffered greatly. And he says there's no question in his mind that his sufferings there, the fact that he was in this prison and the fact that he suffered greatly there, was due to the karma he incurred by taking part in the actions of resistance to the Chinese invasion of Tibet. So he's drawing a straight line there. One seldom hears a straight line drawn from specific cause to specific consequence, but in the book he says that very directly. And he spoke in the first volume, he speaks of his childhood and the fact that he had tendency to anger and acting out, we call it, in ways that brought a lot of punishment. So perhaps another straight line. Some of that punishment from his dear father, whom he later recognized as one of his most important teachers. But the suffering in the prison, he began to recognize that he was caught in anger and hatred for those who were perpetrating suffering on the Tibetan people and those who were doing it to individuals and groups of people in the prison. And he felt caught in this poisonous anger. And when he met his root guru, his root lama, Khenpo Minsel gave him teachings on clear awareness. And Rinpoche said, after that, he had no more suffering. He had no more anger. He had practice. And now we have that same practice from him directly. Short lineage, Khenpo Minsel to Garchen Rinpoche to us. We do not need to persist in ignorance of the nature of the ground awareness, which is clear awareness. At one point when I was thinking about this time for us to be together, I was doing something totally mundane. And this is important teaching I'm about to give you here. The mundane is the best place to be doing clear awareness practice. Ordinary activities. This is definitely my own direct experience, and it's also Rinpoche's advice. We must do some practice on the cushion for sure, because then we learn how to apply what we've been given as instruction for clear awareness practice. But it's in the press of ordinary life, of daily activities, especially of activities that arouse our 5 poisons of unclear mind. That's where we find out whether we have a practice or not. And that's when we learn how to apply it over and over again. This is the first condition. Over and over again, apply it as needed. The same way you get an instruction sometimes when you have a prescription from your doctor, take as needed. That's called PRN. So clear awareness practice, PRN, take as needed. Frankly, it's needed all the time. So we should be on an IV infusion of clear awareness practice. We should never turn away from it. It should be, as Rinpoche says, always and only look at clear awareness. Don't look at the problem. Sometimes we have to look at the problem to see it, but then don't concentrate on the problem. Don't work there. That's not where the work is. The work is in clearing away that which obstructs our ability to see directly the nature of reality. Truth and love, inseparable. It's our nature. Our nature is the same as the absolute nature. Our nature is the same as the ground that Kuntuzongpo is naming as the ground awareness that is inseparable from Buddha nature. So so one day here I was. I call it between the refrigerator and the stove, one of my most important practice places. It's just in that gesture of doing something, not thinking about anything in particular, but let me get the cottage cheese out or whatever. So taking something out of the refrigerator and then turning to my right. This is years and years ago. This ground of practice was conveyed to me by my refrigerator and the stove. So taking something out of the fridge, turning to put it on the counter next to the stove, suddenly there it was, clear awareness. And I had experienced it before in retreat practice, extensive retreat practice at one point in a solitary retreat. I had the direct experience of the nature of mind, which is the defining, life-changing, if you will. If you are willing for it to be life-changing, it will be for you. And so when turning like that from the refrigerator to the counter next to the stove, there it was again, mind had freedom in that moment. And so when I use that as a metaphor, practice between the refrigerator and the stove, it means practice in the run of ordinary life. Because what we're actually always inseparably in, is clear awareness. It is never apart from us, we're never apart from it. The Kuntuzongpo prayer says, what is our fault is that we lack recognition. We lack recognition of the awareness of the ground. The seer needs to see the seeing and what is seen in one inseparable, freeing gesture of awareness. So in the moment when I was referring to at the beginning, I did not lose my train of thought this time, I'm really glad to say. It happens, as we know, quite frequently. So I was thinking about our retreat coming, and I think I was outside maybe taking a walk or sitting on the porch or something, and so my mind was free of task at that moment. There wasn't any task except one foot in front of the other, which is the task of the path. I sort of, not suddenly, abruptly, but gradually saw or recognized that what we call clear awareness, seeing as Buddha sees, seeing truth, seeing what is, without any filter. This capacity is really not separate for an instant from what we call ordinary seeing. Like ordinary seeing this pen. I see this pen in my hand. This seeing is the same seeing that sees the true nature of your mind. We don't have to distinguish between I see truth and I see untruth. What we focus on is the seeing, not the object thereof. And simultaneously, I realized that I'm probably going to weep a little as I speak of this, as I did in the moment of seeing it. It's been with me always, and I've always been inseparable from it. The it being the ultimate wisdom, the ultimate truth, the true nature. When I was a lonely, angry child, clear awareness was there. When I was a confused, destructive adult, clear awareness was there. When I became a happy Dharma practitioner, sitting like a happy child receiving teachings, clear awareness was there. When I fell and broke my hip, clear awareness was there. When I had cancer, clear awareness was there. When I worked to start a peace movement among women, brave, courageous, wise women in Central Africa in the mid-90s in a situation of ethnic civil war, genocidal war, clear awareness was there. We were all inseparable from clear awareness, inseparable except not recognizing it. And that included the man whose hand I wanted to shake, who was one of the leaders of the genocidal party. And I wanted to touch his body. I wanted to let that be a Dharma blessing for him. And it was a blessing for me that I was able to do that. Clear awareness was there. And when I made terrible decisions that caused suffering for others, clear awareness was always there. And clear awareness is with, and all are with clear awareness, who are on ventilators, intubated with COVID-19. Clear awareness is with the little cricket who died in my hand last week. There's nothing that is not that. And as Kuntuzongpo's prayer says, it's recognition of the awareness of the ground, recognition of our awareness of the true nature. That is our key. And key to having that key in our hands is having the altruistic motivation, as the opening prayers defined very sharply and clearly for us. And as Gajahn Rinpoche teaches exquisitely, of course, as you know, on bodhicitta, he actually has said recently something that I hadn't heard him say. I'd heard the teaching before, but not put quite this way. He said, you actually cannot meditate unless your mind is in the state of love. You cannot actually meditate unless your mind is infused with love, that is infused with compassion. That's bodhicitta. That's why at the very beginning of every practice, we call on bodhicitta to arise within us and all beings. That is the altruistic motivation. There is no motivation higher than that, and everything in life depends on our motivation, whether it's beneficial or harmful. Acts that bring happiness and well-being for others, from the smallest cell and insect up to the highest being, among beings on the earth and in other worlds, is virtue. That's the definition of virtue. And acts that cause suffering to those beings is considered non-virtue. And the motivation to be the motivation to love and care for all beings, it's really easy to say, I dedicate this to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. It can just spill out of the mouth as a memorized invocation or commitment. We have to love others and ultimately every being, more than we love ourselves or those dear to us. More than we love life itself. Enough that we are given over to that commitment that all beings be liberated from the causes of suffering and from suffering itself. we need to be taken up by bodhicitta. In that state, there really isn't any meditation or non-meditation, because there is no separation then from all beings and their ultimate purpose. We have taken their ultimate purpose as our own. And so all illusions of separation just evaporate in the state of love, compassion. In our ordinary lives, we might say, oh, that's very high state. I don't think I could ever become somebody like that, but that's not true. You started there. You started there. And now you're just being reminded that state is already within you. It's within everyone. It is the ground that Kuntuzongpo defines. And the prayer speaks so concretely, if I can use a funny word for what I want to say, but so specifically and pointedly, to the practice being to remember the ground and to relax into that ground awareness, which is clear awareness, when experiencing and recognizing confusion or any of the poisonous mind states. The key is to relax. And then it says over and over again in the Kuntuzongpo's prayer, relax, and then your awareness can hold its own, meaning then you are relaxed into the natural state, which is clear awareness, meaning the absolute state. That is the natural state. What I'm pointing to here are the teachings that for me and for many are articulating the path of practice in ordinary life for us. Most of us will not have the opportunity to be tucked away in a mountain fastness somewhere to practice in solitude, in isolation for the rest of our lives and thus attain enlightenment. What most of us have in this lifetime, in which we have the opportunity to meet each other and to meet the teachings of the Dharma, and that's not necessarily going to be the case in every lifetime. We might meet great teachings, they may be different traditions, they might be different traditions, but truth is everywhere and always. Everywhere and always. And so is love, the absolute love, that is like the rays of the sun, not asking whom shall I shine on, but shining light-giving and life-giving warmth and light for all the time. The only thing that makes a difference is whether there's a cloud in the sky for us physically, or whether there's a cloud in the mind for us mentally, inwardly. That's our responsibility. The cloud in the skies are not our responsibility directly, but the cloud in the mind is our immediate responsibility, and we have the power to work there and the responsibility to do so. So the rest of our retreat is basically going to be practice. I'll give as much as I can share, with any skill. I'll give whatever I can that helps our practice. I'm not going to give extensive teachings during this retreat that are not specifically related to what we're going to be working on as practice. It is so rare to have a couple of days in your life where you really mainly are practicing, working with your mind, not necessarily doing what we call meditation in the sense that you're already in a calm and peaceful state. That's not the definition of meditation in my view. Meditation is everything it takes to be here, right now, fully present. So meditation for me, really the way I understand it, is its radical presence. Radical presence. So we're going to take a short break, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll begin to practice. There will be a time for some discussion later on in the retreat on Sunday, and this is the one thing that we are going to do exactly on schedule at the 2 o'clock session. Tomorrow afternoon we'll have a Zoom session, which I haven't done here before, and we'll be able to see. I don't know how many people will be here in the Zooming, but I'll be able to see your faces, which will be a great joy for me. And you'll be able to take a break from seeing my face to seeing the faces of others also, I think. I think it works that way. I'm not really very skilled with Zoom, so fortunately Billy is here. And okay, so that's the introduction to the retreat. Jumped right in. That's good. And so let's take I actually would like to say a 10-minute break. Let's say a 10-minute break. This is really just to run to the bathroom and back, and to heat up your tea if you need to. So let's say it's a 10-minute break, and then that'll be certain. Then we'll be certain we'll be all back here by 15 minutes. Okay. Good. Thank you.
So I'm also going to take this time to show you where to find the book that Lopon Barbara Dubois mentioned on the YouTube. Now you'll see on our garchen.store, which you can access through garchen.net if you would rather. The Lama of Many Lifetimes is available there, and on your screen you can see this is what it looks like. And we do have plenty in stock, so feel free to contact us if you would like a copy of that book or any of Barbara's books as well. I don't hear you. Okay, so what Barbara's holding up is a commentary, is another commentary. I will check on our website to see if we have this as well. It's quite very possible. I'll have to look. But it will. Yeah, she says it's not in the store yet, but it's going to be ordered. And that's the commentary on Kuntuzongpo, as she is saying. So we will meet you back here in 10 minutes.
This past year, Garchen Rinpoche has been giving essence teachings on union. In July last, he gave a series of teachings. All this is on YouTube, on the Garchen Institute channel, by the way. He gave extraordinary teachings on the union of Dzogchen and Mahamudra, the two streams that are considered the pinnacle teachings of the Vajrayana. And union has pervaded everything he's been teaching since, at least that I have been able to participate in online. And when I speak of union in that way, I always start with, and some of you are very familiar with this as we've sat together over the years, the union of absolute and relative, the union of samsara nirvana, the union of ordinary and ultimate. In fact, we could really see what we call ordinary consciousness once we understand that as inseparable from ultimate wisdom, only at this moment not recognized by us. Then we use the term, once we do recognize, then we can use the term ordinary quite differently, because we recognize that what is ordinary is actually the absolute, in that the absolute, the ultimate, has never not been and is the only truth that is truth. So ordinary then actually means absolute. That's ordinary, in that that's original and perduring, meaning continuing through everything, all pervading, inseparable. Inseparable. Living becomes quite different when it becomes lighter. Living becomes lighter, and the challenges, we have tremendous burdens as sentient beings. We bear a tremendous burden of original ignorance, not as a sin, but just as an innocent misunderstanding, actually, misapprehension, misperception, and misattribution, described very specifically in the Kuntuzongpo prayer. And I'll also, if I can find it again, read from this commentary called Discovering Infinite Freedom, of how it is that dualistic mind arises. But now I did lose my train of thought momentarily. Give me just a second. Nope, the train's gone down the track. Oh yes, so living with the burden of ignorance, it makes things very heavy. We take things to be solid that are actually not solid. There is nothing solid, actually. Everything that exists, including us and including our consciousness, comes into existence based on causes specific to that, and based on the conditions that support that that appearance or condition or circumstance, which means that there is nothing solid there. There is no absolutely existing entity or condition or state of mind. But because we think there is, and we live through our senses predominantly as sentient beings, we're living with a reality that feels very heavy to us and that we struggle with. And part of what we struggle with are experiences or conditions that we would call painful, arduous. We refer to such things as suffering. It is a radical acceptance that allows us to bear more lightly the burden of sentience and the ignorance and confusion and disturbance of mind and behavior that sentience entails, because we're operating on the basis of misconceptions about the nature of reality and all the conclusions we draw from those misconceptions. Again, this is outlined very specifically and pointedly in the Prayer of Kuntuzongpo. Rinpoche at one point said, if I said this earlier today, that's okay, it bears repeating, that we need to learn to accept our suffering. I would point to two reasons for this in our just ordinary consciousness and awareness, ordinary used in the conventional sense. One is that when we're in a state of suffering, we're in that state of suffering. It may be very brief, it may be very transient, it may be very mild, or it may be overwhelming, and it may last your whole lifetime long in one form or another. It may be almost unbearable. It may, in fact, be unbearable. For some, suffering is unbearable enough that they leave this life on purpose in order to escape it. But of course, it doesn't work to do that. Ultimately, it may appear to work in the moment, but ultimately it does not, because suffering is in the condition of the mind. When it's in the body, it's pain or discomfort or something of that kind, but the real suffering is mental experience, and mind doesn't die. So if one takes one's life in order to avoid suffering that one's experiencing, it only stops the suffering experience of that particular moment. The mind continues. And it's the mind that produces the causes of suffering and that endures their results. And it's the mind that has the power to lift away the ignorance, which we call self-grasping, that is the ultimate cause of all suffering. So self-grasping, for those of you who are new to the concept, and I assume that there are some among us today that are new to the concept of self-grasping, and even though we've heard it 100,000 times, we never can say too often what it really means. It gives rise to what we call selfishness and self-centeredness and so on. Those are sort of behaviors of mind and body and emotion and so on that come from self-grasping. But what self-grasping actually is clinging to the erroneous concept of there being a self as a self-existing inherently existing, innately existing entity that has a solid nature and a permanent nature. And that's what gives rise to the dualistic mind that we're all so familiar with, because it's really what we live with pretty much until we don't. That dualistic mind is self-other. As soon as there is imputed to be a self, there is immediately imputed to be an other. And there's where the whole dilemma and drama of the life of sentient beings arises. And as long as that misconception is held, there will continue to be suffering. But to go back to the teaching that we need to accept the suffering, the first reason is that it is the present experienced reality. And when we are not accepting what is the reality in the moment, the experienced reality, I'm not talking about the absolute, I'm talking about the relative. When we're not accepting it, we are at war with the experience, we're at war with the feelings, we're at war with our own mind about it, we're at war with others. It's a state of resistance to what is. And at the level of relative reality, that creates inner conflict. It creates another layer over whatever the experience of the moment is that one is resisting. That level of resistance is like an inner war. And it adds pain and additional delusion to the experience of the moment. So that's a kind of conventional consciousness level of understanding the need to accept, even in the moment, this is what's happening, this is my experience at the moment. That doesn't mean embrace or be glad for or whatever. You don't need to make up something for yourself about it. But if you're in a state of suffering, look it in the face and say, yes, I am having this experience. You can take steps to minimize the circumstances that are aggravating the suffering, but the causes of it ultimately are in your own mind stream, not in the circumstances in which you presently find yourself. But in the present circumstance, there is a quality of acceptance that is radical acceptance. It's accepting the reality that is for you in that instant. There is great freedom in that. There's a man named Stephen Levine who wrote a book quite some years ago called Who Dies? He's a Dharma practitioner, a teacher, and he has written and practiced for some years with, I believe, his partner, his wife, to help people in the process of dying come to terms with what that whole universe of experience is like. And I remember only one thing from that book, which was he talked about when somebody is in intractable pain, and I'm sure that many of you, as I have been with people who are dying, who are in pain that cannot be relieved. It's particularly the case in a deeply painful way with people who have certain kinds of cancer, that the medication just simply can't resolve the pain experience. And the acceptance of that pain as the experience that one is in at that moment, moment to moment to moment, is the key to enduring it. And the way Stephen Levine talked about it, he talked about it as mind work. His instruction was, soften around the pain. Soften around the pain. And he spoke of it, of course, in relation to breath work, which it naturally would come to mind that on the breath you would work with that, and there are many excellent teachers who can teach techniques for that. But even that kind of practice starts with the mind. Accepting this is the experience of the moment. I'm going to work with it in some way. It may be that you're going to be yelling. It might be that you'll be pounding the bed. There are lots of ways to work with it, but stiffening makes pain worse, whether the pain is emotional or mental or in the body. Stiffening around it makes it harder to bear. So radical acceptance is a form of softening, meaning one ceases to resist, acknowledges reality as it is in that moment, and abides there. In other words, as Kuntuzongpo's prayer says, we relax and recognize the reality, the experienced reality. We are embodied beings. I'm speaking to body condition and mind condition together. We are embodied. Our minds are in our bodies as well as in the entire universe. But our relative reality experience as sentient beings is brain-based reality, and that is extremely important to work with. And the idea of softening around the pain is a radical acceptance and a radical presence. That's a teaching about radical acceptance and radical presence. And it's also what Kuntuzongpo is saying in the prayer: relax, relax, and let yourself rest in awareness. Rest in the natural state, meaning whatever the state is that you're in right then, relax and recognize and accept. In other words, be present in that state. That's radical acceptance, it's radical presence. And it opens the door to seeing clearly through mind that is not fighting oneself or fighting reality, to mind that simply, for an instant perhaps, simply is aware, alive, awake, and aware. Very simple. On the basis of this relaxation can arise recognizing mind itself. So relaxing and recognizing are very related, and as you practice with the Prayer of Kuntuzongpo as a path of practice, you will definitely experience how those two are related. And as you just sit and breathe normally, you'll experience. But I want to touch on here something that some of us have touched on and worked with before. I call it sometimes the secret practice because it's entirely inner and depends on nothing external at all. It's entirely operating within. And I want to speak at this time, as I frequently speak about this practice, its origin briefly, and then working how it helped somebody who was dying a year and a half ago. Because dying and living with suffering are, sawa, same. If you're suffering at death, that's not going to stop you from dying. If you're suffering with life, it's not going to stop you from living necessarily. But the radical presence, the fullness of presence in the direct experience, whatever it is in that moment, opens the door to recognizing mind. Clear awareness can arise in, or recognition of clear awareness arises in mind that is not fighting it necessarily, accepting it. But having said that, I have to say moments of extreme emotion or drama internally can also be moments in which the clear nature of mind suddenly is available. So struggle is not antithetical to recognition, but the recognition itself will, in my own limited experience, the instant there is recognition of mind's nature, recognition of awareness, however fleeting, there is an extraordinary, if not actually total relaxation also in the body. That's one of the signals. We're practicing this weekend consciously as embodied
beings. That's partly why I'm starting here, or maybe this isn't the start, but why I'm here right now. Speaking of these bodily experiences, emotions are experienced in the body. Mind states are experienced in the body. That doesn't mean mind is contained in the body. Mind, capital M mind, true nature of mind permeates and pervades all. The mind is space-like. It is spacious and open, without any limits, without any basis or cause. It is like space, and there's nothing softer or more open than space. So we inhabit mind intentionally when we're able to in that way. We identify mind with space and recognize the space-like qualities of mind, which are always with us. It's very easy to have that kind of experience. And the experience of direct perception of the true nature of mind is infinite. It is unbounded, like space. Right now, right here, that is our nature. Right now, right here, what sees this? Tuck that question away and have it, the way people used to wear a handkerchief in their breast pocket. Tuck that question away where you can reach it very easily with your recollection and your intention. And in any moment, day or night, awake or asleep, pose that question to yourself when it comes to you. What sees this? This is a training in recognizing. Very simple. What sees this? So when you're so-called meditating, when you're so-called having a temper tantrum, when you're so-called physically suffering, when you're so-called filled with joy, when you're so-called overwhelmed with your love for beings, when you're so-called very confused by your hatred and anger, what sees this? A very significant aspect of our confusion, and thus our ignorance, is our dualistic consciousness, which involves us in focusing on what is so-called outside us, not within. We're looking at external markers of what we define as reality, and orienting ourselves in relation to those external markers, whether it's an opinion, whether it's an experience with another human being, whether it's a sign on the road as you're driving, whether it's the weather, whatever it may be. External markers for sentient beings who are operating on the basis of sense experience and perception are the way in which we tend to define reality. So I want us to pay attention at this moment to this, what I refer to as the secret practice, which is a training in cultivating the inward attention, which opens perception to experience that is not oriented exclusively to sensory perception. One element of it, I'll just briefly mention, one element of it, the part that I call a secret practice, there's an introduction to it and then a completion, but the central part is called the secret practice. In that, one is drawing attention within and resting in the center. I gave this many years ago to, I can't even remember how long ago, probably 20 years, maybe longer, maybe 25 years, to a wonderful person named Taryn Kennedy. And she died a year or so ago, maybe 2 years now. And she was one of the most alive human beings I've ever known. She was alive in every way and loved life, loved the earth, loved everything about being a human being and being on the earth. And yet she was also spiritually thirsty in some way, not in any conventional definition of it, but she used to come to teachings, and then she worked closely with me for a couple of years, but she wasn't wanting to become a Buddhist practitioner or really an anythingist of any kind. And she wasn't really asking for formal practice, and it became evident after a while that one of the things that she was dealing with in her life was a very strong... Rinpoche at one point asked us to identify what was our worst and most intractable afflictive emotion. I named them all. I couldn't make a choice among them. I found them all my worst afflictive emotions. She knew that which one was hers, and it had to do with attachment. And so she started asking for help with that. So I, at one point, gave her this practice that had been given me by, I mentioned having an indigenous teacher at one point early on in my path, my formal path in this lifetime, who had given me something that she called the non-grasping practice. And that's the kind of core on which the secret practice grew. So I gave her this non-grasping practice, which is really cultivating an inward attention. And she did it all the time. It was the practice that she needed, and it was the practice she needed for her worst afflictive emotion, and it was a practice she could do at any time, any place. It didn't require any formality, and she did it all the time. And so when she was dying, she was somebody who was in suffering that was not able to be remediated. Her physical pain, they couldn't touch it with the medication eventually, and she was in a clinic in Turkey dying because they had advanced methods for working with her particular condition. And but it became overwhelming. The cancer outstripped the treatments, and she was helpless in her pain. And the doctors were helpless with their medication. And so she and I on WhatsApp, it was one of these phone video applications. So at any time, day or night, we could connect by phone and do a video call. And so it was as if I was in the bed with her. It was so clear. And we did the secret practice together. And it was the only thing that helped her with the pain. The only thing. And she did it till, I'm sure, shortly before dying, maybe 2 days without it, but up until then, she was doing the secret practice. So that's a strong recommendation for the power of this capacity that we have to rest and relax, to relax and recognize mind in its true nature and to abide there. That's what this is. So it relies upon an inward attention. So I want to give you the instructions now for this practice and for us to do it together while we're alive. If she was so sharp, she probably could have done it even if she hadn't been doing it when she was alive. She might have been able to do it when she was dying. But the whole thing about practicing is do it now, as if your hair's on fire, because when it comes to the time you need it, it needs to be available for you. You need to be able to go get it or call it forth. So let's do this now. Our hair is perhaps on fire. We don't know. For some people, their house may be on fire. But always our hair is on fire, although we don't know it. We have not an inkling of whether we're going to die in the next breath. We do not know. So, this is actually a practice on the inward attention, but it opens us to practicing on the what I call the dynamic display of appearances in our conventional life. This is a way of being with, in radical presence, being with the appearance world that we live in. So, in this particular version of the practice, I call it the 3, 3, and 3. We begin, just prepare yourself by getting into a comfortable position. And we want the spine to be erect, not in a stiff way at all, but in an easy, relaxed way. Think of yourself like a flower on a stem. And so when the wind blows, you can move just naturally with the breeze. And your head is on the top of the stalk, right, of the stem. And so your neck is very relaxed. You're not stiff like this. There are moments in practice when this is good, but not for this one. So just like this, so that if a breeze blew, your head would kind of bobble around. Okay? And we're not crossing the legs if we're sitting in a chair. Of course, if we're sitting on a cushion, you can cross your legs. And don't link the fingers like this, just hand in a hand, or on your knees is good. So first we're going to start with 3 cleansing breaths. And the eyes, throughout this practice, your eyes are open, not closed. And many have experience with lots of different kinds of meditation where the eyes are closed, but for this practice and for the early stages of learning clear awareness practice, we do it with the eyes open. That doesn't mean staring straight ahead. It doesn't mean looking at something. It's an open, soft gaze, slightly down from the 45-degree angle. My natural way of looking is straight ahead, as you can see, because I'm looking straight ahead at you. That's my natural way. But for this, I also lower the gaze somewhat. Not sharply, not way down, because then you get sleepy, and not above the 45-degree, not above the horizon, I mean, but just slightly down in a very, very relaxed gaze, slightly open, okay? And if you're closing them, okay, experience that for a moment and then open them again. Don't fight yourself about it, but when you recognize that you've closed your eyes, just open them again and relax. Okay? Everything here is followed by the word relax. Okay, so inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. So let's take just a couple of breaths like that without anything else. Relaxation immediately begins to flow through the body. Now the next phase is the same thing, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Make the sound s, like the hissing of a snake or a kettle. So on the exhale, you're making that sound, and you keep making that s sound all the way to the end of your out-breath, as far as you can go, and then push a little further with that same sound until you naturally open to the next breath. You do not have to take the next breath or make your body do anything. Your body will do that for you. It's natural. Okay? And so it's a full and complete exhale until you can't go further, and then a slight push. And then suddenly let go. Suddenly let go. Body will take the next breath, no action required. Okay? So 3 repetitions of this cleansing, nourishing, life-sustaining breath
on which rides the mind. Okay? Inhale through the nose and make the sound with me, please. It helps to do it together. Simply rest there for a moment with your just normal breathing. Eyes open in a natural, soft, relaxed gaze. Now the second of the three is the three of the secret practice. First, gathering yourself, your essence, into the center of your being. You don't have to visualize it, but you can. You don't have to use a concept, but you can if it helps. Some people will recognize the central channel. Gathering yourself, you, your essence, naturally and easily, with no force, into the very center of your being. Again, the eyes are open in a relaxed gaze, slightly downward. 3 repetitions of this cycle, gathering, drawing within, and resting and relaxing, abiding within, in the center. However that is for you, it's just perfect. Gathering yourself, drawing yourself within to the very center, and resting and relaxing, abiding within. Feel yourself with your body recognizing this drawing within and this resting and relaxing and abiding. With your body, recognize this. And with your mind, recognize this. And one more time. Drawing within, essence to the center, resting in the center. Whether it's a channel or a place, it's all right, whatever is perfect for you. Resting and relaxing, abiding within. While in the state of abiding within the center, recognizing visually, energetically, imaginatively, the vertical dimension within, lineages of wisdom,
rising and descending, flowing between earth and sky, crown of head open, and in your heart center, at your center, that we call the heart center, conjoining the horizontal dimension, expressions, activities, and articulations of love and creation in the worlds. In the worlds. So, as you rest in the center, sense or visualize or imagine a vertical channel of energy or light, however you experience it is good, moving up and down in that vertical dimension of the secret channel within the body. Earth wisdom rising all the way, flowing upward into sky, sky wisdom descending, truth and love, lineages, meeting at the spiritual center of the heart, and from the heart outflowing along the extended arms and hands, hands open to the worlds, giving and receiving, all expressions and activities and articulations of love and creation in the worlds. So it's an axis, vertical and horizontal axes meeting at the heart center. And rest with this visualization and let it unfold for you as a dynamic visualization or energetic experience, or simply a recognition. However it is for you, it's perfect. Be aware of the upward and downward flow. Be aware of the horizontal flow. Be aware of the meeting in the heart of those two dimensions. And the dynamism. It may set this circle spinning around, or it may become a globe of light. Whatever happens for you, just be aware. Opening, giving, receiving, and expanding. This is the third of the three of the secret practice. The vertical and horizontal flows are in multidimensional relationship and movement, surging, flowing, vivid, transparent, powerful and subtle, dynamic, and profoundly stabilizing. These two axes, as they flow and meet at the heart center, are a profound stabilization of your experiencing, living being. Relax in this dynamic stability. Rest and relax here. Abide in this moving, glowing and flowing display. And now we come to the three of the inward attention. In this condition of the
secret practice or in more conventional mind, it's fine. However you're moving with this is fine. Glancing into your mind, just a quick glance into your mind, and the ordinary seeing, just a conventional, regular way that you see when you look into your mind to see what's going on in your mind. We all do that all the time. Ordinary seeing of thoughts and movements of mind, visual appearances that arise in the mind, or emotions that register in the mind, or images, memories, and so on. Just a quick glance within right now. Eyes open. As you look within, eyes open. And then rest. Just relax. And then we'll do that again, 2 more times. A quick glance within, eyes open and relaxed, or soft gaze within, at the same time, soft gaze without, being aware that you're looking within and without at the same time. You're looking within, glancing, and looking here doesn't mean necessarily only visual. Body recognizing is also what this is about. Any form of recognizing or registering, I'll refer to here as seeing. It's taking note of, being aware of what you're actually perceiving and taking note of it. Just, you may let it go, you might want to rest with something, but it's the generic word we're using is seeing. So it's a quick glance within, just like that. Registering what you see or register. And then resting with that, relaxing. Feel the whole body go into relaxation. And again, 3rd time. Just let your mind scatter. And now, again, when I snap my fingers, a quick glance within. Recognizing what's moving in the mind. And feel the relaxation of that glance. Rest there. Now the second of the 3 of the inward attention. Again, let your mind scatter and be in its usual state. Things coming and going, perhaps. Or maybe your mind is very still right now. Whatever it is, it's in that state that you're in right now that we're referring to. Okay. When I snap my fingers again, clear, just a glance, quick glance. Glancing within. Now resting with what you're seeing, whether it's movement or just an image, whatever it may be. Continuing to look within. What sees that? Let the mind scatter again. Kind of erase. This time I'll gong one time for the swift glance within. What sees that?
Okay, one more time. Let the mind open, just relax, scatter. Quick glance within. What sees that? Repeat as needed. Now, in these first two steps, we've been glancing within, very, very swift glance, and then paying attention, recognizing that we're registering some impressions or sights or emotions or images, whatever it may be. The final three of the inward attention is glancing and then gazing within. A glance is very quick, just like that. Gazing within is resting and resting with. It's being with whatever is observed or experienced. You may have noted in the last round that we did that the perception of inward attention is physical as well as imaginarily visual and also mental. It's a whole body experience to be aware of your mind. We don't give up our body. We're in it for the duration. And it is a part of our subtle experience as well as a part of our grosser experience. The body's registration of what is seen within or perceived in some other way other than visually within, the body registration of that is perception also. So in this third round, when we're turning the attention within, we're relaxing, recognizing, and resting within. Perceptually, cognitively, and physically. The breath, as this happens, as this unfolds, and I am really aware that this has been happening for you because it's as if we're in the same room together. So I'm very aware that your response of relaxing is quite attuned. And that, in my experience personally, however limited that experience may be, that relaxation is a marker for me that I am actually turning the gaze within and without at the same time. It's an inner and an outer engagement of recognizing. And the relaxation of the body is a marker for that. A marker meaning it's a signal that that is actually happening, at least in my experience. Yours might be different, and I'd be really happy to hear about your experience. So in this third round then of the inward attention, as you're gazing, first glancing, gazing and resting within, perception and recognition, registration are alert and aware, but in a very relaxed, open way. The breath can be observed to become more subtle and more fine. We're not doing anything special with the breath in this, but the gaze
The relaxed, open, spacious gaze is aligning with the breath. The breath becomes also relaxed and open and spacious. And a deep ease is moving through the body. So let's do this cycle 3 times where we're just aware of this and abide as long as you wish to. When you're doing your own practice, abide as long as you wish to or as long as you're able to in this simple, fresh, open state, relaxed and recognizing whatever appears just as it is. Just as it is. And what is doing the recognizing? Clear awareness. What is being recognized? Not other than clear awareness. It may have appearance, but how long does that appearance last? You can't hold on to it even if you want to. It's like holding water in your hand. Mind recognizing mind, appearances dissolve in that because they are not of a different nature. It's like water and wave. Thought or any anything perceptible or recognizable is like a wave arising on the surface of the water. But you can't hold on to it. You can't even define it. It's changing from instant to instant. And a thought is like that. Wave dissolves again into water, water flowing into water. Mind has that same nature. Mind is the sea, let's say, the sea. Thought or any appearance in mind arising is like a wave on the sea. So thought arises in mind. When mind sees that thought, thought ceases. It dissolves into its own nature. As the watery nature of the wave receives the wave, so the mind nature of the thought receives the thought. Thought or image or experience in mind hasn't got a leg to stand on because it's got no leg. It is no different from the mind that perceives it. Its nature is the same. So let's do the final round here. Glancing and gazing within. Relaxing, recognizing, breath more subtle and fine. Gaze and breath aligning, deep ease moving in the body. Fresh, open state of mind, simply seeing what appears, letting it arise. Noting it dissolves. What sees that? If sudden, direct insight occurs, direct recognition of mind, its actual true nature, Keep your seat. Sustain this inward attention in a relaxed, easy, open, natural way. If tears come, let them come. If laughter comes, let it come. Inseparable from clear awareness, mind, consciousness, inseparable, gazing within and without, simultaneously, inseparable, appearances and recognition, inseparable, what sees and what is seen, all dissolving, light of clear awareness, all pervading, all permeating. Mind momentarily free of grasping, free of pushing away, free of elaboration or making up stories. Mind momentarily not fixated on anything or anyone. Mind not grasping at self. Mind like sky, open, spacious, pristine, always already here with us. Mingling this clear awareness mind with appearances arising within, same thing as mingling this clear awareness with appearances that we observe outside us. Then outside, inside, distinction dissolving, non-dual mind revealed. In non-dual mind, suffering, not suffering, no longer any distinction. Samsara, nirvana, sawa sawa, same same. Pristine, primordial purity pervades. You are never separated from that. You have never been anything other than that. Your natural state, your true nature is the primordial ground. Clear awareness sees that. clear awareness is that. I am bowing to you with joy and love. I'm thanking you for your practice. I'm thanking you for your attention, for your receptivity, for your responsiveness. I'm thanking you. That's the end of our session for this morning. We'll meet again in 2 hours. Wherever you are, 2 hours from now, let's come together again here. Thank you. I love you.